All right, so hope you enjoyed that those feels with TJ. It looked really fun when you're hanging out with bloodyface. Seemed like he took it in good stride, right?
Yeah, I don't know. We had a lot of fun with a lot of those the media pieces they recorded at the summit, and it was a tough weekend. We had to record all the content they were going to use for essentially the whole year. So, and they let me organize it, which is insane to me, Dan. That after all these years and all my crazy ideas, they're like, TJ, just go ahead, take your crazy ideas and run with them. So I'm happy. I got to do fun stuff. You got to do fun stuff. I'm excited to see yours that are coming out soon.
Yeah, we won't talk too much about that. In the meantime, let's go ahead and focus on what's happening in front of us. We showed bloodyface because, well, he is going to be in our first series for our kickoff match here for Hearthstone Grandmasters of America's. Bloodyface comes in with the best record in Swiss, and the best record tends to be then the player that they go up against. For reference, a lot of the players that Bloodyface will be going up against in the bracket are going to be having like 3-4 records, and kind of middle of the pack that somehow squeezed in through things like Swiss tiebreakers. Bloodyface looked dominant in his lineup and is backed by things like his Spell Druid, his aggressive Warrior deck, which I love, the Demon Hunter, which almost everybody has brought, and the Hunter. And there's one class that seems to be notably missing from Bloodyface's lineup, TJ, that almost everyone else has brought, and that's Warlock. So I am curious to see if Bloodyface, has he cracked this code for this 1 week pocket meta that we're going to be experiencing here at Grandmasters?
I don't know, maybe, but he's the only hunter, and his hunter is banned. So that's a big W in my book.
Oh yeah.
I think he was onto something with that hunter deck specifically. Maybe I don't think the face hunter deck is super powerful in a nutshell. I think it's super powerful when you can, get rid of some decks and kind of isolate a metagame, or at least predict it. When decks are less refined, which I don't think decks are 100% refined, they're close now, and especially these players are getting closer than before. That's when those super aggressive decks tend to be able to capitalize. But we'll talk about that at a later time, because right now we have a match in front of us. It's going to be the Galakrond from ETC versus Spell Druid from bloodyface, and this is a Galakrond secret Highlander rogue.
Yes, there's a lot going on. Obviously, because of it's a Highlander deck, it's got one of everything, but is highlighted by that secret package from Ashes of Outland, as you mentioned, Shadow Jeweler Hanar, which after you play a secret, discover a secret from another class. And part of it is just to help generate that early game tempo that Rogue really wants. Highlander Rogue, like many other Highlander decks, sometimes struggle with that early game consistency because there is a half of the deck that tends to be more late game focused versus early game. And I find that Hanar just kind of help you bridge that gap a little bit more consistently. However, I do feel like because of the rotation, it does feel like Rogue still largely has lost a lot of that early game, or rather still a little bit slow in the early game. And without things like Ziliax, makes it feel like their comeback potential for life gain is significantly hampered, DJ.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and that's why when talking about different lists of the deck, I do tend to like say Boar Control's list more. We saw him make it to the semifinals in Europe for Sunday. He had a Highlander deck that's much more focused on the early curve, which I tend to like that because your late game is already powerful enough, right? You have so much value generation. Just Dragon Queen Alexstrasza by itself, and the Galakrond with being able to get lackeys. So shoring up a bad early game, I feel like, is priority in pretty much any metagame, right? Unless it's super greedy. So I liked his list better. But we talked about this yesterday. I do love this deck. Maybe its power level isn't super high, but I feel like, kind of the same place that Galakrond Warrior fit in the previous metagames. It's just consistent all around. And it does reasonably well all around. But it does lack that life gain, and I think those aggressive Demon Hunters can kind of crush it.
Yeah, I think the aggressive Demon Hunters, obviously for many people, especially if they're trying to play a mid-range or late-game strategy, might be public enemy number one just due to the amount of pressure. But the Druid might be something similar, even though they're hitting 9 mana crystals and whatnot, they feel like they can win at almost any time thanks to cards like Kael'thas and that third free spell that he gets every single time you're playing 2 spells. You get the third one for free. It's a huge swing. We've even seen earlier today, TJ, in Asia Pacific, I forgot, was it Surrender who won by turn 4, or maybe Chonsu? It was ridiculous. Turn 4, playing a full board through the Glowfly and then just going for a Savage Roar. So you can't really sleep on this deck at any juncture of the game. It can just be over.
Yeah, there's a lot of decks that just can't deal with a board full of 2/2s on turn 4, right? So, or turn 3. Sometimes they come out as early as turn 3. And a board full of Glowflies plus a Savage Roar, that's it. That's 30 damage exactly. Just from 2 cards, as long as you have 7 of the Glowflies. So, can be very difficult to deal with. But if you have waves of AoE, right? If you have waves of things to be able to deal with, these boards from the Druid, then they do run out of stuff, right? They have a lot of card draw and like removal spells and buff spells. If you get through the Exotic Mount Sellers, the Glowfly Swarm, and the Forest Aid, like that's it. That's their only minion generation. So cards like Flick or Zephyrus from the Rogue, maybe even combination with Shadow Step, just that alone can swing matchups if you get those early enough in the game, especially against this deck. But it's kind of feast or famine, because if you don't get those, it can be sometimes hard, especially with the weaker early game of Rogue that you were talking about, to get on the board enough to be able to contest it early enough.
Mm-hmm. That being said, have we turned the corner or begun to do so for ETC? He's, kind of getting to that point where if he can stabilize a little bit, he might be able to pull off some really powerful turns himself, but that's kind of a big if. This Exotic Mount Seller is very annoying to deal with. Every single time you play a spell, it summons, a beast, and those cards can be very powerful, but also really annoying to deal with. As you can see, just getting a lot of tempo onto the board, and it seems like ETC is going to prioritize trying to rush down. Did he get it off in time, TJ? I don't know. Oh, Dan. Goodness gracious. Dan. TJ. It's a brand new year, and yet we're still making 2019 mistakes.
This is just 2019 ETC in a nutshell, all wrapped into the very first game he's playing on broadcast in Grandmasters. There were so many times last year in both seasons where ETC had the right idea with the play and found the right play, just didn't have enough time to execute it because he waited too long or found it too slowly. So it looks like ETC, maybe it's a new year again. It's been a long time since he's played on broadcast on Grandmasters. Right. Maybe the nerves have come back a little bit, but I hope that cleans up.
You really can't be doing that kind of stuff. And, to note, this is something that may not have made the biggest of difference just looking at the texture of both players' hands. bloodyface has a ton of more resources, and it didn't seem like ETC had ways to deal with it, especially if he's not even Growlitron yet. His only reliable AoE is Kronks, but you gotta think what could have been. ETC may have just thrown away all of his opportunities right here. I was expecting a little bit of a longer game, but this might be over right here, TJ.
Yeah, he's got to find some ways to pick apart and get rid of this Exotic Mount Seller. Because one of the other things about the Exotic Mount Seller is it allows the Druid to kind of use resources that they would otherwise kind of just be throwing away with Kael'thas to actually just build a board, right? And hold on to like the Glowfly Swarms to try when Kael'thas actually comes down. So he needs to find a good lackey here, maybe a taunt lackey plus Eviscerate. I don't know. There's 14 damage just represented on board. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, gosh, that's definitely a nice win for bloodyface, but perhaps not exactly the way I believe he even wanted to win. Let me put on my fake glasses here, TJ. Sorry. My misplays coming through on broadcast as well.
Oh no, Dan. My cord's on my shoulder.
2 players got exposed today on broadcast in the past 5 minutes. But yeah, bloodyface with a very quick win. I think a lot of people can argue that Druid just felt like really strong in general. Like I've always felt that as a rogue, I am deathly afraid of the Druids, especially if I don't have cards like Flick and whatnot to deal with a big wide board very early on. But that being said, it just felt like ETC gave bloodyface a very easy victory, and you just don't want to do that, especially when the margins are this thin at the highest level. So definitely not a good start for ETC. But you know what? That's just game one, and it is a best of 5. So we'll see how things pan out.
Yeah. Let's see how things match up. Otherwise, bloodyface won with his spell druid, which means he has the combo demon hunter and the no hands warrior, as we call it, because the no hands gamer who popularized this deck with serpent eggs and the corsair cache. Little slight variations across the board from a lot of these players. There's lists that are card for card the same, but the goal is similar, where it's a tempo-based deck that uses like Risky Skipper, Armor Smith, Battle Rage to have health gain and card draw, and then the Serpent Egg, Terran Gorefiend, and Bomb Wrangler to get a lot of control over the board, and these really sticky, hard to remove boards.
Yep, I think that against Demon Hunter, I've been kind of surprised by Rogue, just because it feels like Rogue does have some tools to fight against the Druid, the Demon Hunter, excuse me. And if you just get that early game, it is surprisingly much more effective than I thought it would be. I always felt like when I was playing Demon Hunter in this matchup that my pressure tools would just completely overrun the Rogue. But Lackeys do a surprisingly decent job of making the life of Demon Hunter a little bit more complicated than you think.
I hope you like my invention.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the decks in the metagame right now are a lot more complicated than you think. There's not as many straightforward decks, maybe Tempo Demon Hunter, but even then, there's a lot of min-maxing that can be done with that deck. There's not too many like linear game plan decks, I feel like, in the current metagame, which is cool, but it also has been like that for a while, especially with Mage and Rogue being in the metagame for so long.
Right.
They use a lot of cards that didn't start in their deck. Lackeys for Rogue, plus just with Highlander, a lot of generated stuff, and Mage as well have a lot of generated stuff. So no game feels the same when you're looking at those two decks.
Yep. Interesting to note, by the way, that if you look at the beginning ranks for Tempo Demon Hunter on the data charts, it kind of implies that Demon Hunter is favored against Rogue and kind of has like an easier time. But as you get to the higher forms of Legend, you end up seeing that it's pretty even. But it's hard to say. It's not. Sorry, it becomes less even than the traditional matchups, just because the Demon Hunters are so good at squeezing out those extra points of damage. And so right now for bloodyface's hand, he's got kind of some awkward stuff because he's got a lot of redundant stuff like the Eldrazi Warglaves, and they're not supposed to really be played and then passed here. You really want to be developing tempo as often as you can. But when you play the OTK version of this deck list, it becomes really fun to try to figure out how you're going to try to sort your hand. But most importantly, how does he get to things like Skull of Gul'dan and activate it when he has cards like Inner Demon that's just going to be getting in the way?
Yeah, the hand management aspect of the combo Demon Hunter is one of the toughest, because sometimes you have to throw away tools that you'd otherwise need, maybe not necessarily for the combo, but that you need to kind of deal with what your opponent's going to do, just in order to make the hand lineup better for Outcast, which can sometimes be tricky, as well as just drawing cards efficiently and managing hand size, which is the case with many combo decks, right? Is finding the balance between aggressive card draw and not dying, right? Which.
Right.
With the Eldrazi Warblades is a little bit easier because you have some lifesteal to back it up, but you need so many pieces for the full combo with Demon Hunter. You need Kel'Thas, a lot of cheap spells. You need to have played most of the time Skull of Gul'dan for other cheap spells, unless you've drawn your whole deck, or you're playing against a deck that doesn't combat that combo very well. You do need a lot of pieces, so you need a lot of draw. You need to buy yourself a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely have been here a handful of times where it just feels very awkward. You really want that outcast mechanic. Spectral Sight drawing a second card is great. And there's times where, as the Demon Hunter and I'm playing this deck, TJ, I always feel like I just want to cast Skull of Gul'dan from the hand to draw cards, but bloodyface can't even necessarily do that. He's got almost a full hand here, and he kind of needs to start committing some things to the board. So a little bit of an awkward spot, but the good news is that he does have another Eldrazi Warblades, and he does have the opportunity to play a little bit more aggressively onto the board here. Interesting. Using Kayn to even go into the taunt. I was kind of expecting him to push a little bit of damage, perhaps, because I guess that's partially the way that I've seen a lot of people play it. Yeah. But him bumping into the taunt, what do you think about that?
I think he's just worried that if he just decides to go face and his Kayn gets dealt with, he doesn't have another silence in hand. It's going to be difficult for him to get through that overconfident orc. Right? He has an Immolation Aura in hand, so he can just use that to clean up the taunt. And he already used his silence, so I know he has one more silence in the deck, but maybe he doesn't want to have to use it to get through both taunts. Also, we talked about it, Roach doesn't have much healing, so the damage that he's doing now is most likely going to stick, which means that he doesn't necessarily need a ton of damage, like that extra bit of damage each push through. Uses the second Consume Magic again, just trying to cycle through his deck to be able to activate, or not activate, but get the outcast on those two skulls, which are quite awkward. And the right side of his hand is the only one he can play off of, because the left side of his hand is blocked by the Inner Demon, which he won't be able to cast unless he needs to, or is comboing. So just things are getting awkward with those skulls.
Yeah, it seems like we're on the hold onto your hand until you find Kael'thas plant. Twin Slice does feel like one of those big catalysts to unlock the hand, but you do need that Kael'thas to really unlock the power behind it. And so bloodyface is thinking, how do I best set that up? If I draw Kael'thas as my next card, what does my hand look like? And so I do like kind of getting rid of, not getting rid, but more like just playing out some of these cards that might make it easier to play cards for free as time goes on. But for now, it seems like bloodyface is just on the wait for the right cards to fall into his hand plan. Draw your deck.
Yep. But the Winged Guardian is going to put a wrench in that plan.
Okay.
Now he kind of has to rely on Altruist. Because he's played.
Well, he could play the Zephyrus out as a 2-mana 3/2, and now finally cast Skull of Gul'dan to draw and discount cards for the Outcast bonus.
Yeah, he could. But the problem is, how does he ever get through Winged Guardian? He's used both his Consume Magics, not that they would even be useful since it can't be targeted by spells. He needs to hit the Altruist off of Skull of Gul'dan at a discount, and then when he goes off with his combo with Kael'thas, to be able to weave in enough spells to get through the 9 health. Or to start chopping away right now with damage.
Yeah, Inner Demon just to get through. And I mean, it does kind of push the Skull of Gul'dan closer to the far left side, but it doesn't seem ideal because you do want to combine Twin Slice with combo opportunities like Altruist and Kael'thas.
Yeah.
And it seems like he agrees with that line of play that we were talking about here. Just trying to draw cards and get closer to Kael'thas to unlock his hand. Yes, he would love to have the Zephyrus get full value with his battle cry, but you know what? You don't really get to choose that in a position like this when ETC has the Winged Guardian that's so difficult for Demon Hunter to deal with.
Yeah. This is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Normally you could save Kayn for a situation like that, just to kind of push through, but oftentimes, combo Demon Hunter, unless you're playing a very slow deck, you can't save Kayn because you just need the hand space. A lot of times you have to dump it to activate Outcast or just make hand space. Ooh.
Don't let the door hit you.
The Blackjack Stunner on the Blood Mage Thalnos.
Interesting. So to deny the card draw and make Outcast even harder to activate reliably. You know what? I like that. There's not many cards you'd kind of want to bounce back for the Demon Hunter anyways, so That makes entirely too much sense to me. And now he's got a real 2-turn lethal set up here with the counter pressure of the Van Cleef. 10-10 with the 8 damage is 19 in total with the dagger. Bloodyface needs to react to this and try to stabilize because Rogue is pressing in for the kill.
Oof. So that was a dirty tricks played. Not the biggest of deals. There's not really any of the secrets outside of Bamboozle that are from Rogue that interact in combat, like that affect your combat. So Bamboozle's the only one they have to keep in mind. So it looks like he has to go for Ultras here, and he does have the Immolation. He has the Twin Slices on both sides plus Crimson Sigil Runner. So he's got a good amount of stuff to be able to push through this. Is it 8 though? Because that's how much damage he needs to kill all this after the Immolation Ore was played.
Well, it's at least 4 more because he has Thaunos plus the 2 Twin Slices, and then has the Crimson Sigil Runner. He has to draw a card. I don't think there's any other 0-mana cards that he can pull off right here.
No.
Yeah, with the nerf to the I-Beam, unlikely. Wow, that I-Beam would have made a huge difference. How much damage can we put out here as ETC? So 10 with the Van Cleef, 11 with the Goblin Lackey. And I don't think we can do anything more beyond that.
Yeah, the Galakrond is at 2 cards because he's played 1 Seal Fate and 1 Shield of Galakrond. And a Praise Galakrond, so he's actually 1 away. From being fully invoked, I believe. Can
he set it up so that way Kronks can maybe perhaps get the kill? Because the lifesteal effect is largely generated through the weapon, which Bloodyface just used the second charge of.
Yeah. So
he's just playing Galakrond here. Oh, okay.
So he played Galakrond here and then likely rush the Spy Mistress in with the Goblin Lackey.
I like it.
Boom Pistol Bully. That's perfect.
Wow. Well, there's no Battlecry cards in Bloodyface's hand, but it could very easily be drawn here.
But it at least allows him to have a big body on board that can kill the Ultras and keep the Spy Mistress for some banked damage.
Right.
In case he were to clear the board outside of that. Right? Because I think he's used both Immolation Auras. Yeah, he's used both Immolation. Yeah, he's used both Immolation Auras. So he has no way to touch it.
Okay, here we go. Kael'thas finally drawn. Bloodyface with the pop-off turn.
Is it enough? That's the question.
I mean, he only has 5 cards left in his deck.
He has Metamorphosis, Inner Demon, Chaos Strike, Spectral Strike.
The I-Beam, Chaos Strike, Chaos Strike, and Spectral Sight will activate a free Inner Demon and draw the rest of his deck.
And then it's Metamorphosis,
it might be what you said.
And then Inner Demon is the last one.
He might not just have... He just might not have enough damage over the course of 2 turns.
Yeah, because this is the free spell, so he draw into Inner Demon, so he really just has to, hit face here.
Just all face.
Oh, jeez.
It's so tricky because he doesn't have enough mana to play the Metamorphosis and the Inner Demon as well.
Yeah, so what he has to do next turn is likely Metamorphosis and then use the first Metamorphosis charge to not die.
To clear?
To clear, and then use Metamorphosis plus the Inner Demon to kill the following turn after that. Because now the Kronks right now... would bring him back up to 16. Oh no, that could. That's likely enough. Then you have to use his Metamorphosis. He needs to do his best to set up a 2-turn here, but he has limited mana.
Who in their right mind hides blue?
Yeah, I mean, he goes wide on board here. He can also use Kronks just to end the game next turn, because he should know what cards Bloodyface has left. It's an Inner Demon in deck, the Metamorphosis, which he knows he can't cast both of those. Even with a discounted Metamorphosis, right, it would be 2 mana plus 8 mana.
This looks really tough. Looks really tough. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. I mean, it's not guaranteed for ETC either, right? Or is it because of the fatigue? It is. I think that's it. I don't think bloodyface can get there. He's just a little bit short off of damage right now, and with the 2 fatigue and the 5 from the Kronks, nothing else really can be done here. So I think that's just going to be game 2 to ETC.
Well, he can...
We can clear off some of this.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think the correct play is this, the Inner Demon, because it's more expensive. And if he Metamorphosis, I don't think he really gets there even without that, so... Yep. Kronk's going to push in an ETC with a Game 2 victory, and we're tied 1 game apiece.
Yeah, that was a nice game there. You know, the Winged Guardian, I think, being the big one, and bloodyface kind of having just an awkward hand, right? The Inner Demon shutting off Outcast from the left side of his hand for the whole game, essentially. He had like an Immolation Aura and a Twin Slice stranded there, that he couldn't move the Skull of Gul'dan over enough to get the card draw fast enough to hit Kael'thas fast enough. He had to go off with Ultros on a turn where he didn't even clear. He cleared, but he cleared the Winged Guardian, but he left an Edwin up, which ended up, you know, allowing ETC to kind of get the extra bit of damage that he needed that closed out the game before bloodyface could assemble his combo. So sometimes those Demon Hunter combo hands can beat themselves, and it's about kind of capitalizing on their weak turns as the rogue player, and that's what ETC did.
Yep, so now Rogue is checked off, and we have Demon Hunter and Warlock versus Demon Hunter and Rogue. One thing worth noting is that it seems like Warlock's been the centerpiece of a lot of bans, you know, particularly for people that really want to get their Demon Hunters through, just because Demon Hunter's one of their few poor matchups is against Warlock. So, you know, based off of that, I wonder how the dynamic plays out here for bloodyface. Gamble of, you know, not bringing the Warlock and then banning the Druid instead. Is it going to pay off here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's paid off so far for him. You know, kind of looking through the matchups that he faced throughout the weekend, he has not faced ETC specifically yet. He did not face him during the Swiss portion, it doesn't look like. But the Hunter deck, I think, has been performing really well for him, and we'll see if he can get over that Warlock. But right now, we're going to go into Demon Hunter versus Demon Hunter. A little bit different in the ways that they decided to construct their deck. ETC is playing the Tempo Demon Hunter, which is a little slower, I'd say, than some of the other ones that we've seen. He does have like Frenzied Fellwing, but he also tops out at the Priestess of Fury, and has like the Raging Fell Screamer in the deck as well. Instead of like going for the super fast version of the deck, he's, you know, has a little bit extra top end. We'll see if that's going to pay off for him or be a detriment. He also has Escape Mana Saber, which is an interesting one.
Yeah, you know, Mana Saber, I think, is just a very versatile card. You could almost just justify it in any kind of deck, right? If you want to play Mana Saber for a slower deck, you help get extra mana crystals so you can play faster than your curve. So you can put out like a 6 mana minion or a, you know, 7 mana, etc. You can sometimes do Hunter Aces, try to achieve full board of mana Sabers as a as a mini goal for him. I love that priest deck. It's pretty funny to have a bunch of Mana Sabers on the board just constantly ramping, so you play Ramp Priest. And then sometimes you just use it for the fact that it has stealth. You can just get 3 damage in. It's really hard. It's got pretty good stat line for a 4-mana minion. Seems very versatile, so I don't hate it. I'm not sure exactly how it works in the mirror, because I haven't actually seen it myself in practice, but I have to imagine that ETC specifically put it in knowing that he's likely to face things like other Demon Hunters.
Yeah, especially with no ban thrown at it. Even though, you know, maybe he does ban Demon Hunter, it's just the fact that he is running up against the only Hunter in the field that he decided to ban that instead. But yeah, usually Mana Saber's played when you're looking to accelerate your big swing turns, right? It was played in Mage a lot because that allowed you to get Reno or Dragon Caster or Luminous Pocket Galaxy out of turn sooner.
Woof.
Oh, is that my...
Kind of a rough turn, though, here for ETC. Just you want to use your mana, and you are the one with the onus of pressuring your opponent, but yet you're just passing on turn 3. You can just kind of see it written on ETC's face as well. He's kind of resigned to the fact that he doesn't really like this opening whatsoever. But you know what? You got the escaped mana saver into Skull of Gul'dan. Only problem is that you have a Priestess of Fury in the way of the perfect outcast.
Oh, jeez.
Well, that mana burn also complicates
Yeah,
things too.
he was hoping that he'd be able to get the escape mana saber down and then maybe be able to roll into the Priestess of Fury and try and get some type of board presence down. But now he's just relying on these 2/2s to keep pushing damage. I mean, he's chipping away. Bloodyface is down to 24, but now the Eldrazi Warblades come in. All that damage is going to be healed back up.
Yeah, really good sequencing too from Bloodyface just to make sure to get the attack and then save the charges for later. Finally, ETC can play something since turn 2. Absolutely brutal. Yeah, and one of the worst feelings as well is when you've already attacked and you realize you have nothing to do with your extra mana. So when you hero power, it actually does nothing. It's kind of like healing your own face at 30 as Priest. Bloodyface here picks up the Inner Demon, so very annoying to try to get things like the Skull of Gul'dan active. It just feels like Outcast has not really shown its highest peak performance.
Yeah.
And, ETC with this Mana Saber will be able to skirt that a little bit and perhaps showing us why the Mana Saber is included. So you can get this Priestess of Fury out, deal 6 damage to your opponent. The next turn, you'll be able to Skull of Gul'dan and potentially just jump so far of Bloodyface and maybe even end the game.
Yeah, it's possible. A lot of burst damage, cheap burst damage packed in the deck with like Chaos Strike, Twin Slice, and stuff like that. But yeah, Outcast feels like it's better when you're just kind of like playing a flurry of cards right each turn, where you're kind of emptying your hand, and the less cards you have, obviously, the more likely cards are to be on the far left or the far right. So with the combo deck, one Inner Demon draw just ruins Outcast for one side of your hand, depending on where it's drawn, right? And then you have to make the decision of, which side you're going to play your cards from. And Bloodyface has a lot of cheap cards, like you can see here, that he can dump from his the left side of his hand. But a lot of times, maybe that's you playing cards that you wouldn't otherwise want to play, right? You're just kind of dumping them to make space for Skull of Gul'dan, and maybe that makes your turns inefficient or awkward. But he's starting to get there. Skull of Gul'dan will be playable next turn with the Outcast bonus. So right now, Bloodyface just has to decide how he's going to clear this and, how much he's willing to take or leave on the board.
It's painful, but he's got to kill this Priestess of Fury. He cannot leave that up. I do like using I-Beam, so that way you could get the Skull of Gul'dan off next turn. I appreciate that he even kept the coin. I think that it'd be a complete waste to throw it out, and you'd be floating mana most likely anyways. But that doesn't stop ETC from continuing the pressure train. The Mana Saber already got the job done, getting to 7 mana before it. And now ETC with a second Priest of Fury. How does Bloodyface react?
He draws cards.
He draws cards. He can draw even more cards, either through the left or right side of his hand. The Outcast, full display of Skull of Gul'dan on the far left. See what he can pull out here.
Yeah, I would like to see him play, I think, Skull here, just because it gives him, playable cards still. Same as Spectral Sight, but it also most likely makes his next couple turns more powerful, which is kind of what he needs. Even though it kind of gets the Spectral Sight further away from Outcast, it's very likely he'll be able to just spam play his cards, and hopefully that gets the job done. Still needs to find that Kael'thas, though, if he wants a hope of trying to end this game, because right now he can't just keep spending his cards to remove stuff on the board.
Well, can he even kill this Priestess of Fury? It looks like he's short a damage. He's got the one damage from the hero power, and then he's got a second slice. But that's it.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the twin slice version.
He can mana burn and then just hope, or he can go for an extra life and hope. I think mana burn is a cheap spell that he needs to kind of hold on to in hopes that he gets the Kael'thas.
Well, ETC has full reign over the board, sees Bloodyface with a very weak turn. Is this lethal or something?
Yeah, he has 5, 11 plus another
Yeah.
6. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Nice counting here, and bloodyface takes 18 plus.
Yeah.
For the end of the game. The Priestess of Fury putting out 6, so he's got him covered. So well done by ETC, and that's going to be a 2-1 lead. The aggressive version with the mana saber tech, TJ. I gotta say, I love seeing that. Right, like part of the thing about Grandmasters is how do some people bring the unique lineups, or perhaps the same decks, but a couple of different choices and archetypes. But I also love when people bring something that is very popular, but put in their little twist on it. You know, we kind of coined it like the Eddie tech, but you know, now we have some other players throwing their hat into the ring of potentially having their own pet cards that they love, including in some of these archetypes.
Yeah, it's I like that deck in general because it still has all of the feel of the tempo Demon Hunter, but it also just has, you know, the cards that pack a punch a little bit towards the mid game. The Raging Fell Screamer Priestess of Fury combo is pretty devastating, especially when you think about it. Like, look at that last turn. Bloodyface knew he would take at least 11 damage because it was just 11 damage on board with Priestess of Fury hitting face and 5 damage after the 1 damage went over to the Crimson Sigil Runner. So he was like putting ETC on 5 damage from his deck. That's with Demon Hunter.
Deck
That's
designed to deal damage.
And a deck designed to deal damage. You know, slim hopes for him, but we'll see if Bloodyface left up the Warlock, didn't bring the Warlock. We'll see if that means that Warlock was the deck that he's been trying to beat, because that's the only deck that ETC has left, and Bloodyface has to beat it twice if he wants to move on to the winner's match. Keep in mind that this is a double elimination group bracket. This is one of the initial matches, which means that whoever wins this moves on to the winner's match, and they're 1 match away from moving on to semifinals. Whoever loses this goes down to the lower bracket of the group, and is 1 loss away from elimination. So at the end of the broadcast today, we're going to send 2 players from this 4-player group to the semifinals, which takes place on Sunday.
Yep, so here we go into ETC's Galakrond Warlock. Galakrond Warlock has seen lots of evolution throughout the past few months, dating back to the Descent of Dragons meta. Some people were playing Galakrond in a more aggressive token-based deck, kind of like a Galakrond Zoo Warlock, but now we've largely agreed that Galakrond Warlock is more of a defensive, slower, mid-range / control deck, and there's a lot of ways that you can answer Demon Hunter, particularly because at least for another few days we will be having Sacrificial Pact still be able to target enemy minions. So they can play Priestess of Fury, and then for 0 mana you get to kill it and gain life, which is a pretty sweet deal if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan. This is so bizarre to me. That, you know, Sacrificial Pact has been good and in the metagame for some time now, because previously Galakrond Warlocks just used it as some burst heal to combat, you know, the faster decks or decks that relied on burn damage. But now it's like the staple card in the deck that's arguably one of the most powerful cards in the deck in the metagame. The last time Sacrificial Pact was this necessary in the metagame was like late 2014, early 2015, when Handlock was the best deck, and Jiraxis was played in every deck and was one of the most powerful cards in the game because it destroyed Jiraxis. And now that dream is going to end. It's like the end of an era. It's very bizarre feeling, Dan. I don't know how to describe it.
I know. I can't Sacrificial Pact Jiraxis anymore. People were joking, like, why stop there? You should be able to Sacrificial Pact Illidan. And it's like, I don't really think it works that way. But alas, an end of an era, as you said, TJ.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we are going to tune into game number 4, Bloodyface, with a much better hand, I would say. He does have Skull of Gul'dan on the far left, which I think is one of the most key things about it. He does run into some other logistical issues, like how does he eventually get things like Inner Demon out of his hand, if he ever does. But the most important thing is to just get through his deck quickly. And if you're on the Warlock side, you just kind of keep away for a little bit of time and just be very efficient with your removal. I've never been able to personally achieve an aggressive game plan against the Demon Hunter as Warlock, although I will gladly be corrected, TJ, if that's the case.
I mean, you really just need all of your invoke cards right off the bat, right? Because then you force maybe an early Altruist out of them for very inefficient clear. Or, they don't have Immolation Aura, and then you could kind of go for aggressive game plan. But other than that, no, it's hard. Especially since a lot of the Galakrond Warlocks have been trying to be more defensive with adding additional removal.
Right.
Like, ETC has an Unstable Fellbolt in his deck. That's just to, pretty much deal with the turn 1 plays from the Demon Hunter, like Battle Fiend, right? Or turn 1 plays in general, Battle Fiend, Blazing Battle Mage. Those types of things, because it does have that drawback of also dealing damage to one of your own minions. And the Moag Artificer as well is a card that a lot of the Galakrond Warlocks have been playing. It gives you extra healing from Nether Breath. It also makes it so that the Dark Skies, which the extra damage will continue to go off until the whole thing's resolved. So it basically doubles its clear power. They've been adding those cards in that don't contribute to an aggressive game plan, but contribute to a defensive game plan. So it's very hard to just aggro them down, I feel.
Yeah, I think that most of the aggro game plans from Warlock require a perfect Galakrond curve, and also like a good Galakrond summon.
Yes.
Which is not a reliable game plan whatsoever, and thus you're much better off playing it kind of conservatively.
Yeah. You can get the Frodan special, which is the 4 dormant demons.
Ah, yes. Just me and the boys chilling in the tavern. Gosh, it was so funny. It was actually that won me the game, too, because I got the 2 discount ones, Satyrs, and they discounted my Zephyrus to 0, and then my Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. So I was like, all right, cool.
Well, the discount to Zephyrus to 0 is the one-way ticket to Pyroblast.
I know. Felt good.
That's the juice. 1 demon, okay.
Summon 1 demon. He only needs 1. What's the demon? Oh, it's a dormant one.
Oh god, it's the priest 1-drop too. That's terrible.
Yeah.
2/5 taunt.
So it's a 2/5 taunt that awakens in 2 turns, but the upside is that it's a 1 mana minion.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yikes.
I mean, granted, the rest of his hand didn't really do anything, and he just wants to be able to generate a board each turn with the Galakrond hero. Veil Worshipper wasn't active. He had absolutely nothing to really clear with Sacrificial Pact or Dark Skies. Bad Luck Albatross would have been Bad Luck Albatross Pass, right?
Which was incidentally better than
sure, yeah. I mean, that's more development.
But there's no way to know that.
Yeah. Also, this unlocks more mana for future turns.
True. You get it out of the way. And also, Kronx is active, which I think might be the most important thing about it.
Yep.
Now that Kronx can be a proactive or reactive game plan, I think it's great. I don't mind summoning the 8/8 dragon off the Kronx just to try to put counter pressure on it. Bloodyface also shown a little bit of an awkward hand, right? Because he's been kind of playing passively for a while. He didn't Skull of Gul'dan on 6. So maybe ETC can formulate something, but looks like he's going to also take a defensive stance. Both players taking it very slow, which, I don't blame ETC because he is the slower, or he's the deck that has a slower game plan. And it's not like Bloodyface is incentivized to rush through anyway. He can just kind of take his time and assemble the pieces. Yeah. As noted by the fact that he played Metamorphosis, and just trying to shred through that armor now.
Yeah, I mean, he may just be waiting for 10 mana right now just to have maximum resources, because he already has Kael'thas, he has Twin Slice, and Skull of Gul'dan, which is kind of the the bread and butter of the Kael'thas combo, because that allows you to get the free Skull that's already outcast because it's in the far left, and then draw into more cheap spells to be able to keep the Kael'thas train rolling with Inner Demon. But he's not under any pressure right now, so there's no reason for him to go off yet. Outside of being worried about something that can shut off his combo from being able to happen, which usually would come in the face of a Galakrond, because it would summon big taunt demons that you wouldn't be able to get through, and you should have gone off sooner. But right now it's like ETC has Kronx to summon an 8/8, and then a Consume Magic from the Skull of Gul'dan completely negates that. So it's starting to get difficult.
Yeah. And I think ETC kind of knows what's going on here. Kind of just been playing one side of the hand for bloodyface. Some okay-ish combos going down, but I think if I'm ETC, I'm pretty dialed into the fact that bloodyface must have a combo hand already, and he's just kind of waiting for the mana crystals, or just waiting for like 1 or 2 more cards at best. But what do you do if you're ETC? I kind of want to grab a little bit of tempo, but playing tempo, things like Crazed Netherwing ends up damaging yourself. And that's not good either.
Yeah, also, it looked like ETC had based a lot of his thinking on Altruist being a demon. Demon.
Yeah.
He moused over the Sacrificial Pact and pointed at the Altruist, but it is not. Altruist is just a neutral.
No. Oh gosh, both skulls in Gul'dan in the right outcast position. Life.
Yeah.
And okay. So we do have Inner Demon being very cheap, but I think he still wants to cast that for free here. Bloodyface probably still not done with his Kael'thas here. He has at least a couple more opportunities. What do you think about him playing the far left skull? I was kind of anticipating to play the far right one.
Yeah, if he had played the far right one, he would have been able to go off with the second one, and he can.
Right.
But no, he couldn't have because he actually consumed magic first, and that drew into the Skull of Gul'dan.
Yes. Okay.
So, and then he played the Twin Slice, which put the second slice to the right. So he had to play the one on the left because the one on the right was, because of the second slice, was no longer outcast.
You're right.
So this was the only way he could have done it.
It just happened so fast. I think we kind of glossed over that fact, but
yeah,
it doesn't look like he had a kill. It just felt like he had a possible kill this turn. That's all.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure bloodyface caught on to that sequencing properly, which is really important, right? Like it's not a twin spell. It doesn't stay exactly where it is in the hand. It will always give you the second slice on the far right.
Yep.
And that can mess up your outcasts.
Yep. And you don't want to waste a Kael'thas cast on something cheap like that. So
absolutely not.
I think that's nearly as efficient as the turn could be. But he does put an ETC down to 4. Now he has double Sacrificial Pact.
Okay. Well, he only has 1 demon.
Okay, now he's going to have
to
to
summon both.
Yeah, and he's going to have to sack pack both, I think, if he wants to be safe, because just if he sacks pack once, just 1 Inner Demon would kill him, it's pretty likely that it's there. But right now, Bloodyface has 9 plus... yeah, that's 14 exactly,
Yeah,
right?
That's lethal.
Yeah, because Inner Demon's
Demon,
8,
Kane,
Hero Power
and
is 1, and then Altruist, or not Altruist, Aldrachi Warblades is 3, that's exactly 14, right?
Yeah. I was also thinking that if he had Zephyrs active, that was a possibility, but it didn't look like it was based off what we saw. But Bloodyface going to tie it up 2 games apiece and trying to reverse the Swiss curse. We have a lot of belief out there that if you do really well in the Swiss, then you are destined to underperform in bracket. And Bloodyface could be a person that helps fight against that trend, because I personally believe that he has a really good lineup, and I would love to see him to continue to explore that, especially with a no Warlock setup. Yeah. But now we go into a matchup that I'm not too familiar with, TJ. I haven't actually played a lot of Warlock and Warrior in terms of them going up against each other. So do you have any opinions on this matchup?
I don't have much either. I have played a lot of the Warrior deck and a lot of the Warlock deck, but they don't match up as often as you might think. The No Hands Warrior hasn't caught on in many metagames outside of competitive and like top maybe 300 Legend. And I'm like 3,000 Legend, Dan. I'm going to be honest here. I'm not going to try and pretend to be something I'm not. I don't run into many No Hands Warriors. When I play it myself, I don't run into many Galakarn Warlocks. It's just a lot of Demon Hunters and Spell Druids and Spell Mages down where I am. But you feel like the amount of, one, unremovable board states, or board states that are very difficult to remove, that are built by Terran Gorefiend, and 2, just the amount of bombs that can be shuffled into the deck with a Wrench Caliber that's buffed by a Corsair Cache, those two things alone make me feel like this should be pretty warrior favored. Based off of feeling. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I'm trying to look up the data, DJ, and see how it matches up. And I guess, I mean, people call it no hands warrior, but there's a lot of variations. Bombs and pirates and all kinds of variations there in between. It looks like across the board, if you just kind of split the difference there, Warlock does have the slight edge data-wise. But TJ, I feel like now more than ever, data just lies.
Well, if you look at it from the actual Swiss, the Americas Swiss standings, which most of the Americas players had the bomb variation of this warrior deck. It's only a 14-game sample size, but Warrior had a 64% win rate. They beat Warlock 9 out of 14 times. And there was, for example, a Language Hacker who has a Warrior deck that's much more defensive-oriented to try and beat the Tempo and Aggro decks. Maybe not so much able to beat Warlock decks, and that could be a couple of the losses there. So,
right. And Bomb Warrior gets increasingly worse too the higher rank you go. In fact, if you go to the top end legend of the publicly available data like Aegis Replay, Warlock is a significant favorite. So let's see if someone's figured it out on either side here. Is ETC prepared for it, or is bloodyface going to bomb his way through Game 5? I got to say that it's pretty fun to see that Bomb Warrior in some shape or form is still alive and cooking. I know players have experienced the highs and the lows of playing this and playing against this kind of archetype. But as a caster, it's pretty fun, DJ.
I mean, just think back to December when players were looking at the new cards and was it December? I think it was Descent of Dragons? When there was Highlander archetypes that it might have been even earlier than that, where players were saying that Bomb Warrior would completely shut it off, and Highlander decks would never be played because. Oh
yeah, that was Savers of Old Doom, because the Savers of Old Doom was.
Savers of Old Doom.
The Zephyrus and the Reno and Diamond Tamer brand.
Bomb Warrior.
And people were like, Bomb Warrior is gonna make all those Highlander Reno decks useless,
and it didn't.
And we were very wrong.
Yeah, we were very, very wrong. But right now, players don't really expect it as much, and I think a lot of players underestimate just how many bombs can get shuffled. A lot of these lists even play Captain Greenskin. So even though you don't play like Clockwork Goblin or Sephorian Bomb or anything, well, you can't, but you just play Wrench Caliber. That's like 6 charges with a Wrench Caliber if you get it from Corsair Cache, you upgrade it with Captain Greenskin. And Warlock draws a lot of cards. Demon Hunter draws a lot of cards. There's a lot of decks in the metagame. Druid draws a lot of cards. Bombs being in the deck makes it risky to draw cards at every step of the game. And it also makes the damage that you can't account for, which is what Warlock wants to do. They want to be able to say, this is how much damage I can take. I need to Netherbreath Sacrificial Pact this turn. Whereas the bombs are like, all right, I'm going to draw 3 cards this turn with Veil Worshipper. I'm at 15. Do I have to Sacrificial Pact to make sure I don't draw 3 bombs?
Yeah.
That's kind of,
awkward.
The awkwardness, yeah.
Risky Skeeper and Sky Raider helps keep the combinations going just to clear a little bit of the board. Finds a Hench Clan Burglar. That's got to be a nice one. Also gets to Battle Rage. I love it. Also, I want to give a shout out to Terran Gorefiend, because that with the Boombots always make for a really fun combination. Terran Gorefiend is a new legendary from the Ashes of Outland set, where its battle cry is destroy all friendly minions, and then death battle, resummon them with +1/+1.
Oh yeah.
So you get some real fun shenanigans with Boombot to be able to chain them out.
Oh yeah, they can get real annoying real quick.
Oh, it's super silly sometimes.
Yeah, some of these the board states that Warrior can generate. They have multiple layers of things that you have to remove. Because if you Terran Gorefiend the Serpent Egg, yeah, sure, you can try and remove the first wave of the serpents plus Terran, but then more Serpent Eggs spawn, and then if you remove that wave, then more serpents spawn. So it's just like redundancy of board, and that's why in theory, why I think that The Warrior just has a solid game plan to be able to combat Warlock, but Warlock's got a lot of powerful tools, especially removal-wise, and Warriors can draw through their deck really quickly and run out of threats. So we'll have to see how it's going to play out. But right now, bloodyface has plenty of cards to be able to throw onto the board, and there's the Terran Gorfine play.
Yeah, the Terran Gorfine just works really well with Death Battles in general, but it's fun to see it, play around with eggs. I know a lot of people do Warlock decks as well, just to try and get some board presence. But this is just good tempo, right, in terms of getting a decent amount of stats and making it sticky, so that way ETC can't easily remove with cards like Dark Skies and Nether Breath. So now what does ETC do here?
So many possibilities.
It seems like he's been favoring the card draw a lot, because he was even tapping and playing Zephyrus as a 2-mana 3/2 tempo minion. Is he favoring that dynamic still? Because then, if so, he would go for a Veiled Worshipper to try to draw deeper into his deck to get his activators up.
I'm sure that's a game plan. Also,
Yeah.
Zephyrus just can be a very tough card to use in this matchup in general, because with Bomb Shuffled into your deck, it shuts off Highlander later on in the game. So it can be pretty inconsistent. You don't want that to be kind of like sitting there as a dead card in your hand for so long because you can't play it.
It's a good point. It's a good point. So with that, I believe we have 0 bombs shuffled to the deck right now.
There
so
are 0 bombs.
through.
Yeah. No Wrench Caliber. I mean, Wrench Caliber is the only way you can shuffle in bombs. It's just Wrench Caliber is so consistently found because of Corsair Cache. He just happened to pick up Anchor from the Corsair Cache this time, which is still good. That's just the, thin your deck card draw good instead of just raw damage. With the buff Wrench Caliber, every swing of your Wrench Caliber is dealing 9 damage. It's just delayed.
Yes. Speaking of damage, bloodyface damaging all of his minions, gearing up for a big card draw engine in Battle Rage.
Yeah.
Finds the other Rampage and more eggs. And now can start pressuring.
Yep. And it doesn't take much. Warlocks generally are floating around like that 20 health mark. You look at, say, Corcoran Elite, Inner Rage, Rampage, Bloodsworn Mercenary. Not a rare combo with this many cards drawn. That is 18 damage from hand. And that only costs 9 mana. You can throw in a second Inner Rage, make that 22 damage.
So many possibilities.
Yeah, gosh, that's so much damage, and it almost becomes like a combo warrior in a way, even though it has more of a mid-range element of it, just building up a board and trying to pressure through through very high value trades or big tempo swings.
Yeah.
ETC, what does he do? He's got a bunch of awkward cards, to say the least. Dark Skies will clear off the first half of the board, but you still have to deal with the back half. Well, it doesn't even clear off everything because he has 9 cards in hand, it looks like.
Yeah, doesn't clear everything, but he can use Devoted Maniac. And
sure.
I don't even know if he... well, I guess he does want to attack into that, just so his Dark Skies next turn. He has a little bit of easier time clearing. It does take
really
1 power
much,
off
right?
the board. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, how much damage can bloodyface put out here?
He can't do the Rampage plus Bloodsworn Mercenary at the moment.
You're right. You're right.
Because he's at 8 mana.
Still, though, he's got Corcoran Elite, 2 Inner Rages, and a Bloodsworn Mercenary, so that is 8 times 2, 16 plus 3 is 19. That's a lot.
Yeah.
From the hand. Bit of a weird Hench Clan Burglar. What is this? It's like all basic cards. Bees.
Oh. Alright, so now he does have lethal set up for the next turn from hand. Because the combo is 22 damage. Corcoran, Inner Rage 6, Inner Rage 8, Rampage 11 times 2.
Yeah, and I think ETC, he's seen so many cards being drawn that he's kind of got to figure it out that either he's going to be staring down big bombs or he's going to be getting comboed out of the game. So I like this Crazy Nether Wing, just clear off the board.
Yeah.
Probably just play this Albatross as well to develop tempo behind it.
But he's got overkill even.
He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
It's hard to account for this too, because you know that Warrior is looking up to set up big bomb plays through the Blastmaster Boom, but when they draw 23 cards in their deck before your 10th turn, you gotta anticipate them having some kind of combination. So with this, bloodyface is gonna take our first series here of Hearthstone Grandmasters in Americas with a 3-2 victory off the back of a no Warlock lineup featuring Face Hunter. So bloodyface keeping his momentum, now 7-1 on the weekend so far.
Yeah, and it's kind of fitting. We ended season 2 of 2019 with bloodyface winning, and we start off season 1 of 2020 with bloodyface winning. Seems fitting for just the trend of Grandmasters, and like the play on the Warrior deck as well. And I think his aggressive lineup working out quite nicely. You can call it an aggressive lineup, but it's really just kind of the Warrior and the Hunter that are aggressive. Demon Hunter, I guess, combo Demon Hunter is aggressive because it's Demon Hunter, and you could just hit face every turn.
Yeah, it's almost like every deck and Demon Hunter's aggressive because you just hero power and you press the button for 1 damage.
Yeah, I mean, I've won a lot of games playing combo Demon Hunter just on turn 8 by playing Inner Demon and twin slicing, like just 10 damage from hand on turn 8. It happens. Yeah. It does happen. So not as consistently as Tempo Demon Hunter, but yeah, bloodyface moves on to the winners match. ETC will fall down to the lower bracket match in the group.
That's right. So we coming up next, we're going to have the other side of the bracket. We're going to have Language Hacker versus Frozen. We're going to play out the winners and the losers bracket. We have 5 matches for you today. So bloodyface will be playing the winner of Frozen from Team Liquid up against Language Hacker, who I believe is looking for other opportunities. I believe he might be a free agent at the moment. Either way, we're going to get ready for that series. And it should be fun because Language Hacker, he is a new Grandmaster.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it as much as the other Grandmasters just because he was on the broadcast a lot last year casting and was just kind of involved in the conversation, at least from our perspective, because he's kind of been in, we chatted with him a lot about things last year because he was casting for some of it. But kind of officially stamping his name on being a Grandmaster's player and top-level player instead of caster is what he's looking forward to and trying to do. And Frozen has had a good amount of success. He had, he was top of the division in Season 1 last year, and Season 2 performed very well. He's kind of been one of the players that's been ahead of the metagame at multiple